tonight we're going to be answering a question that's probably on a lot of people's hearts. Did gods arrive on a comet? Now, it took me a long time to come up with a title for tonight's show because I had never heard of the younger Dryas until Baba Kilindi, our special guest on these episodes, kept dropping little nuggets. And he, at one point, stated that everything after the younger Dryas was modern history and before was ancient history, and then he just left me hanging like that. And I was like, I need to know more about the younger Dryas. So I said, well, obviously, I found out a lot of information about the mushrooms and psilocybin and DMT and 5-5-5-DMT, the toad and all that. But I couldn't find anything Kilindi has said about the younger Dryas. So I was getting information kind of like from sources who my ear wasn't really like tuned in, but I wanted to hear it from somebody who I know personally, who I respect as a scholar, as a researcher, and I was like, well, I'm excited. So I had just some real fun with this one. And normally I have my man Firewater to come on here, but tonight I got Brother Amsu is in the building. Y'all put y'all hands together for my brother Amsu. He's going to come in here and open up and help me out a little bit tonight as we get this thing together. Y'all can do better than that. Y'all can do better than that. That's much better, much better, much better. Brother Amsu, how you doing this evening?
Yes, thank you. Very good, Coach. How are you today, good brother?
Hey, man, I'm blessed by the best. Too sexy to be stressed and excited right now. Excited.
I know that's right, man, because it seems like this is going to be a night of nights to go into the younger Dryas, go deeper into the, the basic creation stories that we've, been passed down over time, and move beyond the find out where many of these religions started,
Right.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, why we not doing like deeper research? Why you think that the younger Dryas is such an obscure subject?
Things get revealed as the more digging that happens, the more research that's done, and as humans take the next step to discover the multiverse, to discover the things that we don't know, man. It's like, hey, the revelation starts to happen, and it's good because it's time for us to step into our greatest possibilities.
Right, as little Duvall said, start living our best life.
Yeah, that's right. Fantastic.
So
fantastic.
I can't wait to see also how Baba Kilindi incorporates this into the series that we've already been doing with the psilocybin and how this can all help us as explorers push the envelope. So I'm going to go ahead and get this thing started. Did gods arrive on a comet? The younger Dryas story with guest Kilindi Iyi. 917-889-3803 is the call-in number. And there is no doubt that the present-day living conditions of the world are deeply rooted in history. There also is no doubt that limiting the amount of correct information concerning historical phenomenon is a very old way of mind control. All of our religions, beliefs, cultures, and patterns come directly from what we perceive as, quote-unquote, the truth about the past. Well, tonight, international scholar and master teacher Kilindi Iyi of the Tamarian Institute joins Coach Khayr to answer the questions, did the gods arrive on a comet? The younger Dryas story. We're going to go dip back into the Ice Age and possibly before and see where these gods came from and what was preceding them. Tonight's going to be a serious history lesson built for the scholars. As usual, this will be an envelope-pushing conversation, and there's going to be tons of extras. Pen and paper is a must. Feel free not to only call in and listen, but to press 1 at any time if you have a question or comment. Also, don't forget to bring or invite a friend and share this on your social media timeline. Don't hide it, divide it. We all we got. Please put your hands together right now as we bring on Baba Kilindi Iyi. Baba Kilindi, thank you for coming on tonight. How you feeling today?
I'm feeling well. How's everybody doing?
We're doing fine. Just like I said, just real excited about this one right here.
Well, I'm gonna start out with a quote from Arthur C. Clarke, who he's the one who wrote 2001: Space Odyssey, along with Stanley Kubrick, dealing with that famous space movie, hell open the door type thing. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Our ancestors utilized technology as magic. And if you remember Thor 2 in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Thor was talking to Jane Foster, and he said, that what you all call science on my planet or my dimension, Asgard, is magic. So we're going to talk a little bit about the old magic this evening and the Upper Paleolithic, which is, we'll be talking about, the last ice age, the last glacial maximum, which was around 23,000 BCE, which ushered in a global warming process that brought in the younger Dryas through several cataclysms, and we'll be talking about those things. So when people are talking about the Americas, because basically the Americas were was the continent that was most greatly affected, because this is where we had the impacts. And for years, geologists had a gradual model of how climate changed and things happened, because they couldn't find a impact crater for several meteors or asteroids or comets, whichever ones they were. They don't specify which one it was, but they just say an extraterrestrial event. They have found since then an impact crater in Greenland, but it's in the ocean, and it's a sizable impact. So we're going to go into the Younger Dryas. We're going to go into ancient Americas and how that affected the rest of the world and climate, how this basically works into the scenario of mushrooms, and how we dealt with transdimensional beings coming into this three-dimensional five-sense reality, and how they liaisoned with the ancient people and transferred technology, because what we're looking at is a transference of technology when we're talking about the megalithic structures of those times before the Younger Dryas, when we're talking about Baalbek, and we're talking about Göbekli Tepe, and we're talking about the Great Pyramids and the Sphinx on the Giza Plateau, and when we're talking about different megalithic structures around the world that go back many thousands and thousands of years. Some are copies or some are reconstructions of more ancient works on more ancient sites that were rebuilt by newer people who came and saw the ruins, and they did their best to reproduce it. That's why even in Kemet or Egypt, you'll see how the best work was done early, and later on the work became kind of shoddy because it wasn't the same folks doing it. So we'll move right into it. We're going to be talking about ancient records of what the people themselves said, about the longevity of the lives of those people whom the primitive people of those times call the gods. And we'll talk about giants. We'll talk about intraterrestrial habitation, in other words, people who lived under the earth. Now, I'm not going into the hollow earth theory about the whole earth being a hollow sphere and nothing on the inside. That would go against geology. It would go against physics and all of the things that we have information on that tell us how the planet is constructed. But we will go into ancient cave systems of which people at the time of the Younger Dryas or just before the Younger Dryas were carved out in many places around the world to help with the survival of people. Because that's what actually helped the human beings on Earth survive over a period of time, because after what we're going to be talking about in just a few minutes, the Younger Dryas, a lot of the Earth was really uninhabitable. Other places were, if you were inhabiting these places that you could get by with, it was very inhospitable and very dangerous and these type of things. So let's get into actually what was happening around these times. Now, we're talking about a very specific timeline of which has been meted out by geological science. They have ice core samples, soil samples, these type of things that can pinpoint the date of what we're talking about. What we're actually talking about is a impact that happened. The first one happened 12,800 years ago. And meteors, asteroids, comets, I'm going to just say comets for now. Comets are ice, asteroids are metal, steel, iron. But I'm going to just say comets. But it may not necessarily have been a comet. It could have been an asteroid. It could have been a meteor, or a combination of those different type of extraterrestrial toward meteor stream. Now, the toward meteor stream, they call it the toward meteor stream because it comes out of the constellation or the direction of the constellation of Taurus, the bull. And what happened was, millions of years ago, a comet, it was about 100 miles long and wide, broke up and left millions of pieces of itself floating around in this stream of meteors or comets that is called the Toward Meteor Stream. And the Earth passes through the Toward Meteor Stream twice a year, in June and in late October, early November. And it takes 12 days to pass through the Toward Meteor Stream, and we do that twice a year. So just the I'm not going to say the luck of physics, because these things are planned out mathematically through different algorithms in supercomputers, and we'll talk about that a little ways. That's what that's what put the planets in their exact positions. That's what stops us from just getting totally destroyed by one of these things, because we move through it twice a year. We had a meteor explosion that happened in the atmosphere in Cuba about a month ago, and it destroyed. It was a small one, so it destroyed windows and hurt some people and did some things like that. But it was a very small one. Another one, a little bit larger than that, in 1908 in Tunguska in Russia, it exploded as an airburst, and it flattened 80 million trees. It was lucky that it wasn't over a populated area, but this airburst of a meteor about the size of a yellow school bus exploded in the atmosphere and did this type of damage. So we're talking about comets that were much, much larger than those small things that we've encountered in, the last 100 years or so. So what happens is that they believe 4 shards coming out of the Taurus meteor zone over the top of Canada, moving from in a northeasterly direction, came and hit the Laurentide ice sheet. The Laurentide ice sheet was remnants of the last ice age over Michigan, Ohio, New York, Minnesota, Illinois, Indiana, all of these different places was covered by an ice sheet, and the ice was 2 miles thick. So if you stand on the ground outside and just look up, and 2 miles up was nothing but ice. It's kind of like the Antarctic is now. So you got 2 miles of ice sitting on the top of Michigan. These 4 shards came in. One hit in the area of Greenland. They believe that one was an airburst because they had evidence of that. One hit Ypsilanti, Michigan, in a place called, Saginaw, Michigan, in a place called, I was going to Ypsilanti today, so that's why I said Ypsilanti. Saginaw Bay. And that's right at the indentation of the thumb in Michigan, and also Lake Erie. And at the speed these things were traveling, between 70,000 and 100,000 miles per hour, when it hit that ice sheet, it not only particleized millions and millions and millions of cubic feet of ice, it also sent big chunks of ice, melt water. Pieces of ice were hit in the Great Lakes in Michigan, Lake Erie, and it knocked pieces of ice all the way to North Carolina and South Carolina, creating what is called the Carolina Bays. These are oval indentations today filled with water, and they're all moving in the same direction of a southeasterly direction, because that's the way the ice hit in that direction. What this did was it liberated so much water. You had inland freshwater tsunamis that were 1,000 feet high. So if you look at one of those disaster movies and you see the waves coming across and things like that, that doesn't approach what these waves were, what these tsunamis were, what these torrential water moving across the country, not only pulling soil, but also floating icebergs from other parts that weren't actually hit, but the concussion of these impacts knocked big chunks of icebergs floating on top of the water, moving pieces of rock, some weighing 18,000, 20,000 tons, pulling that across the country, pulling trees and soil and rocks and gigantic pieces of ice coming across the country, disturbing the face of the land and creating havoc everywhere this was going on. Now, that's part of it. The other and last piece of this comet exploded in the air, and it set everything on the lower part of the country, the landmass of North America, Central America, down into South America, on fire. And we have record of this in what's called the black mat layer. Black mat layer is the fallout from the burning of the carbon that was being deposited on that top layer of soil where the whole country is on fire. So if you look at one of those wildfires in California and you see, land on fire, and, the guys are out there, and the planes come by, and the helicopters come by and drop that water and those chemicals to put the fire out. They can't put the fire out. Just think of between Canada and Florida on fire, all of what was ancient, or all what was down into Mexico, in Mexico City and all that's on fire, and the top is flooding, coming across the country in a way that's as tall as the Sears Tower, coming across the country, creating havoc. And this is called Meltwater Pulse 1A, because all of that water, all of that fresh water, is then dragged out into the oceans and the seas. So actually, the sea level rose right at that particular time. And in a later impact, which was 11,600 years ago, it created havoc in the weather patterns because you're throwing all this cold water, all of this fresh water into the saltwater seas, the Gulf of Mexico, disturbing the North Atlantic current. The North Atlantic current is fueled by the solar radiation. In other words, solar radiation that's impacting at the equator is accumulating heat under the salt water. The salt water is used to insulate that heat from being liberated into the atmosphere, and the North Atlantic current drags that warm water north, and then over time, it's liberated into a temperate climate. So after the last ice age, what happened was this impact, this new fresh water into the oceans, then produces what is called a younger Dryas. The younger Dryas is a period between 12,800 years ago and 11,600 years ago, approximately 1,300 years, of where after the ice age, the temperature became warm and temperate and better, and then it was plunged back temperatures for 1,300 years. People who were living in a climate similar to Florida or Hawaii or someplace like this is then plunged into another mini ice age. And that's what the younger Dryas is. The younger Dryas is a flower that flourishes during Arctic weather. And it's called a younger Dryas because the older Dryas this flower was flourishing during the last glacial period. And when it got warm, the flower disappeared. But when these impacts happened and the weather patterns changed back to Arctic temperatures, the flower reemerged. That's why they call it the younger Dryas as opposed to the older Dryas. It's the return of glacial conditions and the reversal of the gradual warming of the climate after the last glacial maximum. So that's what the younger Dryas is. It's the reemergence of this flower. And, it has its, Dryas octopetala and, these type of names for this flower. And that's what the younger Dryas is. It's an Arctic mini ice age that happened for 1,300 years. And people at this time had to deal with this freezing cold coming in places where they were just getting used to the warmer climate. So when we look at places like ancient Kemet or ancient Egypt, and we look at the pyramids and we look at the Sphinx, we can see at the time of when these ancient megalithic structures, many of them were made. Now, the Egyptologists will tell you that the Great Pyramid, the three pyramids, Khufu, Khafra, Menkaure, the Great Sphinx, were recent during dynastic times in Egypt. But the Sphinx there is water erosion, and the plateau there, the Giza Plateau, hasn't had any type of torrential rains in the last 10,000 years. But you have these vertical watermarks on the actual Sphinx. And geologists looked at these things and say, well, this is water erosion. But the Egyptologists, sticking in their, in their field of being the experts, anytime you're talking about anything dealing with Egypt, said no, that was wind erosion, and that's just over time of the wind hitting the Sphinx and things like that, and that's not the case, regardless of what the Egyptologists say. The Sphinx is, number one, you can't date rock. You have to have some carbon, some organic matter to be able to date it with carbon dating. You can't date rock. So we don't know how old the Sphinx is, but we know it was made prior to what we're calling, again, the Younger Dryas, because it is at the time of the Younger Dryas that part of the Sahara of which the Sphinx and the pyramid complex sits, time when it had torrential rains for hundreds and hundreds of years, and the Sahara was still green. So we know that it goes back past that because, number one, if you read the works of Scuola de Lubix, dealing with ancient Egypt, he talks about in the Temple in Man and things like that these things were arranged through astrology, but they were inherent in the system of the Neters or in the system of the gods, whereas on the equinox, the sun would rise perfectly over the head of the Sphinx, and it was in the time of Leo, the lion, because it always coincided what they were doing with astronomy, the stars, the constellations and things like that, because they were always looking for the cataclysms that happen coming from the stars and man and woman's relationship to the stars, because that's where we came from. The Earth is a seed planet. Its indigenous population is what we see as an indigenous population was brought here or came here. Some came as pilgrims. Some came as shipwreck survivors. Some came on purpose. But out of the 27 different humanoid types and out of the several times that humanity has been here, been bumped off or killed out, and new travelers come to reemerge the human and humanoid stock on Earth, because it's, you find footprints in Mexico, and they date them at 29 million years old. There are giant footprints in South Africa, and they're 12 million years old. When we see that the records say human beings, their present form, have only been here for the new dates are close to 300,000 years old, but to 12 million and 29 is a long way from 300,000 years. The thing is that these climatic changes have happened over and over again. Several times, meteors have destroyed the world population and also the animal population. 99% of all animals on Earth have been killed out or died out. Some are even going so far as saying that out of these meteors that are floating around out there, millions of them, that's what destroyed Mars and the civilization that was on Mars. Now, along with, fighting and nuclear weapons and things like that, if you're going to go into Zulu history, because all of the ancient writers talk about, and all of the oral traditions talk about, that we came from the stars in other places. Now, there are a few places that say specifically where they came from, and those are in Africa. The Dogon, the Bambara, the Zulu, the Akan. They all say that they come from the stars, but they plant their, they plant their spear in the ground saying that we came exactly from right here. It's even like the Ile Ife in Nigeria, and the Yoruba. They have DNA that's not connected to any of the earlier genetic material found on the African continent, because Ile Ife is only a mirror of the planet of Phae in the Sirius star system. They go so far in Africa to say where and what planets they come from in different star systems. So a code, an algorithm, a DNA. Riding on a comet, riding in a meteor or asteroid. And none of this stuff is by accident. None of this stuff is by accident. For life to just like scientists say, life randomly got together, proteins and, enzymes got together and, just coalesced together, and eventually you got people sitting up talking on cell phones. No. To make one protein, not even protein, to make one enzyme, one cell, one enzyme, if you had an inchworm, I think I may have said this last week, if you had an inchworm moving at an inch per year, ferrying one atom at a time from one side of the universe to the other side of the universe, back picking up another atom, ferrying that atom, moving a mile per year, that second atom to the other side of the universe, back picking up a third atom, moving to the other side of the universe and back picking up a fourth atom. It would take longer to produce one enzyme than it would for that one inchworm moving an inch a year, ferrying every atom in the universe from one side of the universe to the other and coming back. That it would be longer to produce one enzyme just by randomness than it would for that inchworm to ferry every atom in the universe from one side to the other and coming back. So life don't just pop up. It was engineered through mathematics and the supercomputers below the Planck length, where the magical wave supercomputers exist that generate all of the reality that we're in. It's a simulation that we're in. It's like putting on the goggles, the HTC goggles, and playing Luke Skywalker or something like that. So life don't just randomly start up, let alone getting into, proteins and things like that. That's That's what you say it's doggone impossible. Doggone impossible. So all of the ancient oral traditions and records say that we come from the stars. And the oldest science is that we come from the infraparticle realms, from the quantum realms, and that's why I started with any sufficient technology is indistinguishable from magic, because we're now starting to deal with the quantum realms and replicators and bringing things into existence from nothing into actuality. So when we're talking about the younger Dryas, that was the first. That was Meltwater Pulse 1A. Now, Meltwater Pulse 1B is what kicked us out of the younger Dryas period and moved us into a more temperate climate all the way down to today. Today is it's the best climate that has been in the last 10,000 years. There's never been a climate like this, what we have now. People are talking about global warming and climate change and things like that, but these are cycles that the Earth goes through naturally. You know, burning of hydrocarbons, burning of fossil fuels man's impact has been less than 1.7% since we've been driving cars and burning coal. It hasn't changed at 1%, but the Earth itself changes and goes through these cycles, and nobody knows why it goes through the cycles, but everything that exists goes through cycles, and the Earth is no different. The sun goes through cycles. You have sunspots and mass coronal ejections. The Earth has super volcanoes, electromagnetic storms, and things like this in relation to the sun. So when we talk about that exact time of 11,600 years ago that brought us out of the younger Dryas, then we're talking about things like the Sphinx, and we're talking about the pyramids, because regardless of what people think about Egyptology and all that kind of stuff, the reason why they call it the Pyramid of Khufu. Now, they may have been doing some reconstruction on it 3,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago. They may have been doing some reconstruction during Khufu's time with some graffiti in the pyramid itself that said Khufu. There's nobody ever been buried in it. There's no writing in it. They don't know when the thing was built. But since they had some graffiti in there that says Khufu, they said, okay, well, this must be Khufu's pyramid. No, it's not Khufu's pyramid. The pyramid was built in the time of the gods, the Neters. Manetho gave the chronology of those who ruled in ancient Kemet. And the pyramids go back thousands and thousands and thousands of years. They're pre-dynastic. It is the first pyramid. The Pyramid of Zoser is a mastaba. It is a mastaba pyramid created during the dynastic times by Imhotep. But the Great Pyramid, the Merkut, on the Giza Plateau, was created thousands and thousands and thousands of years prior to that. The alignments are at 12,800. They're at 35,000 years ago when the three pyramids lined up with the three stars in Orion's belt. And it happened again earlier than that. And some say that it goes back past 100,000 years. Others say that it was the time of Jehudi or Thoth, between 50,000 BC and 32,000 BC, that it was created by Thoth or Jehudi at that particular time. But we have things like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, that is a megalithic structure that we know is dated past 10,600 years ago because it was intentionally buried for whatever reason after as a monument to what the people had to do to survive when the temperatures plunged. And at that place, Cappadocia, which was the kingdom there in Turkey, they had a series of labyrinth caves called Derinkuyu, which was an underground city that had 37 different rooms, each that could hold, or quadrants, not quadrants, but different layers that could hold 20,000 people at a time. The underground city could hold almost 750,000 people. They had water sources. They had air pumps. And people lived in these underground cities to get away from the climate that was happening after that first 12,800 year ago impact that they used to survive in 11,600 years ago, and then they buried it 1,000 years or so after, so that people would know that, hey, these things are coming around again, because in Göbekli Tepe, they have these megalithic structures, these pillars. They're made like T's, but the T's are representative of human beings because they have arms that wrap around them, eyes and nose and all that kind of stuff. And these pillars, what is called Pillar 43, you have a rendition of this extraterrestrial impact. But cave systems were utilized all over the world. The Kentucky cave systems, and as I said earlier, not to talk about that the earth is hollow in the middle, but you have cave systems that were carved out by human beings at these particular times that went for hundreds of miles. There's purported under the Great Pyramid tunnel systems that go out into the desert in bedrock for 100 miles or so that people utilize to go into to survive mass coronal ejections, radiation, climactic conditions that were inhospitable for people to live above the ground, because when this impact happened, it was a worldwide changing event. It killed three-quarters of the human population on Earth. It destroyed 90% of the megafauna on the North American continent. So when people are talking about who were the first Americans and all this kind of stuff, and, you know, the Moors was here, New York was, you know, wherever, and Florida was something else, and Detroit was something else. They never take into account the younger Dryas and the people who were here, be it the Clovis culture, be it the Folsom culture, be it the mound builders. And I've been to several of the mound sites in the United States, Snake Mound up in Ohio, and the big mound in outside of St. Louis, down at the mounds in Georgia, in Michigan or Detroit. We had an extravagant series of mounds that were in the area. There's one now that's like 4 miles from my house. It's the side of the soccer field where they play soccer and sit on it and have picnic lunches. It's ancient mound. There was Prairie Mound, where I used to live, where they had artifacts from the mound and things like that suddenly disappeared. So the mound system in great cities that were around these large mounds, like the one in St. Louis, that has a larger footprint than the Great Pyramid in Egypt and the Pyramid of the Sun in Mexico, in St. Louis. Then you had the cave systems in the Grand Canyon and all over the country where people went when this stuff got tight and they had to get under Dodge. This is where they went, in places that were carved out. And you see how people with rock spear points can carve outside of a mountain 100 into the bedrock and 100 miles out into the doggone land, with different compartments, apartments, hotels, homes, air shafts, wells, water systems to take the waste out, growing food underwater. Not underwater, but underground, and things like this. Storage facilities, transportation, all of these different things going on under the ground, carved out. Now they're gonna tell you that they was carving these things with chipped rock. They carved in the rock with chipped rock. How long will it take to do that? Timeline don't add up. They had some type of technology that was carving these things out underground. It's the same technology that they used to carve these megalithic structures. In Bulbach, you got stones that are 1,000 tons that are setting up on top of stones, setting 1,000-ton stone on top of another 1,000-ton stone. How are you going to do that? With ropes and pulleys and a bunch of guys on the end of the ropes pulling them? No. There was a high technology that was destroyed out at these two impacts. At 11,600 years ago, that is the impact. Meltwater Pulse 1B is what many say destroyed Atlantis. It rose the sea levels 400 feet. It deluged the Indonesian archipelago. It covered the land bridge that was created by Hanuman, the Monkey King, and the Ramayana between India and Sri Lanka. It deluged the Philippines. It covered every coastal city in the world because the sea levels rose 400 feet. Do you know how much water that takes to raise the sea level 400 feet? If they melted all the ice on Earth, including Antarctica, the glaciers up in Upper Canada and Greenland and all those different places, if they melted all the water in the world, it wouldn't raise the sea level but 200 feet. So we're talking about some massive disasters, the high technology, flying canoes, flying chariots, vimanas, the Falcon vehicles. All of this technology was deluged and destroyed. Plato said that his ancestor Solon, who spent 12 years in Egypt with the Kemetic priests, asked the Kemetic priests, when was the disaster? And the Kemetic priest said, which disaster are you talking about? You Greeks are like children. You know nothing of the mysteries. They said the last one was 9,000 years ago. So when you add up when Solon was in Egypt with 9,000 years, that's 11,000. Now, the dates are approximate and stuff like that, but it wasn't 10,000 years ago, but 11,000 years ago. So that's 9 and 2. That's 11,000 years ago. Exactly 11,000 years ago, that was the time of meltwater pulse 1b, that Atlantis sunk. But we're not just talking about Atlantis, because there's no record in Kemet of a place called Atlantis. There's no records anywhere of a place called Atlantis. But we're talking about many Atlantises, because all of the ancient and old civilizations talk about the disaster that happened and the water that came that deluged the coastal cities around the world, because that's where the technology is. That's where the stuff is happening. That's where the music is going on. The parties are happening, the clubs, all that's on the coastal cities. It ain't up in hamstring, Alabama up in the hills, or the Okies or the Ozarks or wherever the folks is that live up in the hills with moonshine and all that kind of stuff. They ain't building no planes or Tesla cars or anything like that. If New York and St. Louis and Los Angeles and Detroit and Minneapolis, St. Paul and wherever else gets flooded out, them people up there might as well go back to the Stone Age. They have some squeezing, some corn liquor, but that's about it. As soon as the gas run out, nobody knows how to run no refineries or nothing like that. So when all of these coastal cities, because the water came up 400 feet, so everything's drowned out, and then it came with a cataclysm before it, meaning that it wasn't just hit by the wave of water. It was hit with trees and mud and sludge and rocks and ice, and all these different type of things happened. So the people retreated underground. As we get the whole caveman thing. People, the caveman people. People in caves all over the world, not just in Europe. And in China, in Australia, all through Africa. Because it changed the whole world. Now, Africa didn't lose its megafauna in certain places. Central Africa, East Africa wasn't as affected as many other parts of the world. That's why you still have the oldest oral traditional records in places like the Congo, because that's where the real technology and information is, in places like that. Because, as I said before, the North American continent, Central America, parts of South America lost the majority of its megafauna. Megafauna is any mammal over 100 pounds. And the things that were in the North American continent were the saber-toothed tigers, the short-nosed bear, giant beavers big as elephants. They had 4 types of elephants on the North American continent. I can't remember all 4 the name, but there's the woolly mammoth and the mastodon, and there was 2 others. The woolly rhinoceros, dire wolves. If you're looking at Game of Thrones and you see them big wolves that they have as pets, that Jon Snow and them had as pets, them big wolves, 3 times the size of a regular wolf, those were roaming North America. The American panther, the American leopard, the American horse, the giant camel. All these things were killed off in the matter of an afternoon. And those who didn't die in the afternoon died within 2 weeks. We see the evidence of this all over the United States. The scablands up in Washington, when Lake Missoula flooded over. All these different things were happening relatively around the same time, and the big impacts were in one afternoon. Now, I've talked with my friend Graham Hancock. His book talks about this in his new book, Magicians of the Gods, because Fingerprints of the Gods that came out in the 90s, he was so attacked by the establishment and archaeologists and geologists and historians and anthropologists and things like that about Fingerprints of the Gods that there was a transfer of information that created Mesopotamia and Sumeria and Akkadian and Egypt and all of the different civilizations that came after the younger Dryas. He was so attacked about the megalithic culture and the fingerprints of the gods that transferred that technology, agriculture, and history and astronomy and all these different things to the present human beings, that he was so attacked about it. He said he will revisit it in his new book, Magicians of the Gods. And it is thoroughly documented with 2,000 footnotes and things like that, so there'd be no doubt in what he's talking about. And there's also geological evidence for these impacts. They're called impact proxies. The impact proxies are iridium, nanodiamonds, microspherules, what I call miniature buckyballs, melt glass, similar to trinitite, which when you drop in Nevada, when you drop a hydrogen bomb and it hits the sand and it turns the sand to glass because of the tremendous heat that these things were carrying when they came into the atmosphere, moving at 70, 80, 90,000 miles an hour and hit an impact on the earth. You have a iridium matte layer over 4 continents, and iridium is not present in terrestrial ground. In other words, the earth, iridium has an affinity to iron, and when the earth first cooled in its infancy, it drug all the iridium to the core, to the iron core of the earth. So iridium is not in the top layer of the soil. The top mantle of the soil of the earth is not in there. It only comes in with asteroids and comets and things like this. But it shows a matte layer over 4 continents of iridium. Iridium is an exotic metal. I mean, it's an exotic metal. It comes in, on these asteroids and meteors and things like that. So at the same layer, you have these nanodiamonds, microspherules, melt glass, iridium, platinum group metals, palladium and platinum, all this stuff in a fine layer of at the time of this impact or these impacts. So the jury is pretty much in on that there was an impact, and it was tremendous, and it was in one flash in one day. And everything played out after that. So the civilizations that sprouted up 4 and 5 years ago with Mesopotamia and things like that talked about the, in dealing with Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh, in Ep-7, which is the Babylonian flood story, the seeking of the bush of immortality with Enkidu and Gilgamesh, the older stories of Haru, Ansar, and Aset and Set, because the records that the Kemetic priests, when they were talking to Solon about this flood, is recorded in the Edfu building text. It's recorded on the walls of Edfu Temple. Edfu Temple is a Ptolemaic temple. It's not that old, but it was built on top of older temples that were built on top of older temples that were built on top of older temples that preceded the Younger Dryas, went back through the last ice age into antiquity, and are in Congress with things like the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid on the Giza Plateau, because they talked about the primeval mounds of which the temples were built, the temple systems were built, and these are records that come from older records that were rewritten and rewritten and rewritten, and they said, we can't rewrite this stuff, so we're going to put it in stone so it stay there. So when they built Edfu Temple, which is the Falcon Temple, which is the Horus Temple, or the Temple of Heru, they built it and carved the metal nature or the hieroglyphics directly into the stones. Now, did the gods come from comets? Let us visit that. The gods were in congress with human beings through the technology of the entheogenic, hallucinogenic, and psychedelic compounds in which they ingested. The so-called higher beings, or the Neteru, or the gods, and we're just saying that for people to be able to understand what we're talking about. We're talking about a being with higher technology than was on the earth at the present time. Not gods as in gods, because Africa has no gods. God and gods are recent constructs and the invention of religion. The Neteru were powers and principles of nature that came out of nature because the hallucinogens came out of nature. And they get the ability to be able to contact and to be able to bring the gods to earth through the communication device of the mushrooms that were growing, of the other power plants that were growing. The Acacia nilotica and the ruta, or the Syrian rue, paired with the Acacia nilotica, and then invoking the endogenous dimethyltryptamines from darkness by accumulating melanin and pinealine. Pinealine is not only the most powerful antioxidant, it gives the minute levels of DMT secreted by the pineal gland and the lungs and the liver to be able to be useful as a contact device of the extra-dimensional, hyperdimensional levels of existence that are throughout the multiverse and the infraparticle realms. So my story from more than a decade ago is that you have hunter-gatherers on the prairies of the Sahara. You're in the Sahara, and you encounter the mushroom because you've lost your technology. The older people have left. The other more primitive people that were on the earth were flooded out. So just as in the Superman movie, when Superman had given up his power, Superman 2, when the three ruffians came in, General Zod and the rest of them with Christopher Reeves, and he had given up his superpowers, and he didn't know what to do. He didn't have no information because he had burnt up the Fortress of Solitude up in the snow. The snow, the cold. He had a Fortress of Solitude up there. How did he regain his superpower back? He had the one original crystal that he had that built the place. And the crystal told him how to become Superman again. So they're walking across the grasslands of the Sahara behind the cattle, because as they're gathering, following the cattle herds, you get a chance to be able to steal a piece of meat, some substantial meat, because you're eating grubs and roaches and, stuff like that, busting squirrels in the head. But while you're following the herds, on the dung of the herd, of the cows, on the dung of the camels and things like that, these mushrooms are growing. You eat the mushroom, and you find out the different levels of the usage of the mushroom. But the most important is that it delivers a mystery that is more of a mystery today in the 21st century than it was 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, a million years ago. Because we think as a group that we're the highest level of technology, we're the highest level of knowledge that has been, because we have writing and records that say that. But hey, if one of the meteors come up toward the meteor stream and hit the earth and throw up so much dust, or hit the water and the waves come in at 1,000 miles an hour and grind New York, Detroit, St. Louis, Chicago to dust, those records are gone. So they didn't have the records anymore of what was going on, what type of technology was there. But the record was recorded in the archives of the earth and the archives of the solar system. And how do you connect to the archives of the earth and archives of the solar system technology? In the early part of the last century, the Theosophical Society called it the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records. It's actually the Akashic Records. In other words, the DMT records that are on a finer vibratory scale and frequencies that are embedded in the technology of the mushrooms. So it is in contact with that, with those record halls, with those informational structures. So when you ate the mushroom, it delivered information to you. It showed you the past. It showed you the possibilities and the impossibilities, and how to reach the impossibilities by going beyond the possible. Through the different universes, different solar systems. Knowledge, unbelievable knowledge and technologies. Unbelievable traveling, faster than light. Time travel, teleportation. Recreation of the fundamental laws that built this universe are in that mushroom. And you can't get clowns to try it one time, even if that Google tells you that it's safe. Even if that Google tells you that you won't be addicted. Even that Google tells you that, you ain't going to kill yourself with it. They won't try once. They'll listen to they'll listen to the lectures, they'll do the research, and too scared to try it once. I know I have friends who have been trying to try it for 20 years, for decade after decade. You ready yet? No, I don't think so. I don't want to mess my mind up. Give me a break. Stop being so damn scared. You want to play like it's real, but you don't want the real thing. You want to be a priest, but you ain't hooked to no lineage. Or the lineage you hooked to ain't hooked to nothing. Tell me nothing about the gods. I go to the refrigerator, grab a handful, lay down in the bed, and go with the gods. Come down to my room, sit down in a chair, have a conversation. Not a bow down thing. Supposed to bow down to nothing. Supposed to say and face everything. The only kneeling is kneeling to the higher power in yourself. So, they're on the Sahara, trying to steal a piece of meat between the hyenas and the wild dogs before the vultures come. Before the other scavengers come, you grab a piece of meat. So following them, you encounter the mushroom. You eat the mushroom. And it gives you a way back in to the technology. Tells you what reincarnation is for. Reincarnation is to get to a particular point as far as the genetic, the DNA is concerned, as far as the codes are concerned. You do that over and over and over till you get to a point to where you can re-engineer yourself into your own imagination. These people want to change Trump. You can't change Trump. The only thing you can do is change yourself. We can't revolutionize ourselves out of this. We got to evolve out of this. Evolve to where all these things don't matter. Because you're not looking for food, clothing, and shelter anymore. Shoot, an ant got food, clothing, and shelter. A roach got food, clothing, and shelter, even if you live in your doggone house. So how? Because you got a light bulb and you can turn it on in the kitchen, you better than a squirrel who just go to sleep and in the morning get up when the light comes. You say you're smarter because you made music and that you're the only one that has records and the only one that this and the only one that that. Well, if you had a way to choose that you could be in your most perfect environment all the time while flying, that you could rest while you're flying, that your food is available just for the picking, would you choose that? Or having to go out in the woods and chop down trees and get you some nails and build your house and sand the floors and pour concrete and all that kind of stuff when your house could be surrounding you like a whale or a dolphin? What's smarter? What's more intelligent? To insert yourself in your environment where you don't need anything or where you need to roll around into everything? No. The younger Dryas was an impact that preceded the technology, the new levels of technology that were gained from the hallucinogens, psychedelics. All of that stuff that you see, TVs, cars, trucks, airplanes, and all that kind of stuff, is older technology that was, it's been before. This ain't the first time. It may have been different. Put your canoe on the water, they put the canoe on the air. It ain't the first time. It's been done over and over and over again. There are portals and doorways that they, when the stuff got crazy here, they stepped off into the doorway, off into another dimension, off into something else. When stuff calmed down, we come back and start building again. Some folks think that as far as UFOs are concerned, it ain't no UFOs. Of course there's UFOs. UFO just mean unidentified flying object. But when we talk about craft, you know, and not to go down the whole Masonic thing, the craft is the building of the craft. How does God, without no tools, make the craft? The craft by engineering yourself into the craft. You are the craft. The spacecraft, the interdimensional craft. So this is what the younger Dryas is. The younger Dryas was a plunge back into Arctic cold before the Earth started warming up again, started to recycling and leveling itself back into a temperate zone where the human population could, over time, build itself up. The megalithic structures that were left as a monument to the prior times before the younger Dryas, when you had access to dimensionality through the same roads that you have access to dimensionality now, but the people weren't as materialistic in how they related to everything that exists. You have people that, spookism and that, I don't believe in that kind of stuff. There ain't no such thing as ghosts and all of this. You ain't never done nothing. You ain't never studied nothing. You ain't never been part of nothing. All you've been doing is sitting in your room on YouTube. Not even read no books no more. You just look at videos. Damn! And you go sit and think like you know something about life. You ain't never been nowhere. People talk about I've been all over. I've been to St. Louis. Me and the wife had a trip to Cancun. Don't you understand the places you go? It's still nothing but America. It's nothing but America. They fix them up for folks. Go drag some sand from someplace and make a beach. Put up a 4-star hotel where you can sit up in there in your flip-flops and your bathrobe and order mimosas and, eggs and filet mignon for breakfast and all that kind of stuff. You ain't never been nowhere. You ain't stopped in the jungle. You ain't been up in the mountains. You ain't went down in the earth. I'm talking about the real mysteries of life. And not in that, you can't even go in your own bedroom. Eat your own bedroom and eat a handful of mushrooms and go outside of your bedroom. Go outside of the earth. Go outside of this solar system. Go outside of this construct that we're in. Manipulate the matrix. Access the spheres of knowledge outside the human consciousness. Become more. That's what it's about. The AI is going to push you to that because the AI is here. It's in the internet. It's in the cloud. It's manipulating water and rain and the electromagnetic spectrum. So what do we do? Where do we go from here? We either start accessing the real knowledge and information and power that we're embedded in, or we'll be trapped in a hole somewhere so dark it'll be like the Witch King of Agmar, when Galadriel and Sauron and Gandalf got together and he pulled out the Mordor blade. He said that blade can't be here. It can't be the Witch King Agmar's blade. Why not? He said that those tombs were so dark and so deep, and the spells put on him to lock that shit up couldn't be broken. But Sauron broke those locks and let the Witch King Agmar and the Nine out of them doggone tombs. And it's the same thing here. They'll lock your ass up in one of them tombs in a puzzle that's impossible to get out. You be still in there trying to get out. Because I got out of it. The length of time of that inchworm ferrying one atom to the other side of the earth, coming back and picking up another atom, that's how long I was stuck in the darkness, trying to figure a way out. So I'm saying it's time to start being serious. We ain't going to vote our way out of it. We ain't going to vote our way out of it. We ain't going to appeal to the humanity of white supremacy and foolishness and the artificial intelligence that is totally bent on the destruction of the organic. And not that the organic ain't artificial, because it is too. Because this is a simulation. These realms are so big and so vast, and it's so deep and so powerful that you can't even imagine it. The only way you get in is close is through the psychedelics, entheogens, and hallucinogenics. That's the only way you can even conceive of the things that are out here. You think you got it down. It's meat and potatoes. It's my house. It's my job. It's my children, my spouse. And the world is solid. But it ain't. It ain't solid. Everything you think is solid ain't nothing. It's an illusion, Maya. In India, they told you that. So it's all illusion. Ain't nothing but a glass house. So, did you ever? Did somebody say something? Am I still on? Because my phone will cut off, and I'll be talking for an hour, and because y'all ain't saying nothing, I don't even know if y'all still here. I've been talking for an hour, and my phone will cut off.
Oh,
they trying to get me. Y'all still there?
We wide open. We ain't going nowhere. We right here.
Okay.
So
that's why the super civilizations that were on the North American continent and things like that. That's why the records of those civilizations, they're down in they're in Death Valley, and they're in the Grand Canyon, and they're down in the deeper realms of those caves in Kentucky and different places around the country where you got cave systems. They still have records. They're in those mounds, which get tore down and the records disappear. Just like the bones of the giants. Smithsonian Institute tell you we ain't got no giant bones. But go back into the 1920s, into the 1901s and 1898, and go to the papers. Frederick went out to make a barn, and when he put in the foundation, he found the bones of a human being with a femur that was 6 feet long. But of course, because science wanted to distance itself from religion. In the late 19th century, they wanted to distance themselves from religion. They wanted to distance themselves from the Great Flood, because the Noah flood is just a rendition of the flood of Inumpistum, which is the Babylonian flood story. But you got flood stories all over the world, but they wanted to distance themselves from the Noah story. And so anytime anybody says anything about flood, the scientists say, oh, you're pseudo, or you don't know what you're talking about, or that's fantasy and things like that, because they want to distance themselves from anything that was biblical. So if you say giants, science wants to distance itself from giants because of David and Goliath. So anything that has what is called a biblical connotation to it, these stories are before the Bible, before all them little Bibles, the Tyndale Bible, the Rains-Dewey Bible, the Gutenberg Bible, the Geneva Bible, all those different Bibles that are floating around. They're older than all of them. Tyndale got burned at the stake for his Bible, and it preceded the King James Version. But then when you want to get into the exotic Christianity, the Gnostic works, the Nag Hammadi Library, the Apocrypha and the Pseudepigrapha, all of those older works, the works of Origen, Cyprian, Tertullian, Augustine, the Holy City of God on Christian doctrine, seminal Christian works and stuff like that. These stories are older than those. The revealing text is right on the wall. It's older than the Bible. So the flood stories, what they call flood myths, thousands of years before the Bible. But to distance himself, anytime you say flood, even if it's the flooding of the Mississippi, if it's the flooding of the Yangtze River, if it's the flooding of the Tigris and Euphrates, flooding of the Black Sea, you say flood, they associate it with Noah, and then they say, oh, that's mythology. That ain't real. These people don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they're doing. They're talking about Darwin. Origin of the species. Darwin don't even talk about human beings in the doggone origin of the species. He's talking about finches on the Galapagos Islands. It's in the descent of man that he talks about a common ancestor. Regardless of what people say, you got 99.7% the same DNA as a doggone chimpanzee. Nowhere did they say that human beings came from chimpanzees or gorillas or orangutans. That whole thing about the people coming from chimpanzees come from the Scopes monkey trial in Tennessee back in the 30s. Famous trial they had, and they brought chimpanzees out talking about, man, then he evolved, from the chimpanzee. That's where that monkey stuff come from. It was a whole campaign. It was a publicity campaign to get money down into this little town in Tennessee where they didn't have nothing else to do. So they went through that whole trial. It went all over the United States about people coming from monkeys. No, I talked to Nana C.K. Gagnon, who was the head of the Ghanaian Council on Tradition in Africa. He went to all the different groups in Ghana and Togo and Benin, and went to all the old people, the traditional people and stuff like that. And I asked him, mouth to ear, face to face, I said, where did they say we came from? He said, there are different people. He said, one people come from the gorilla. He said, one people come from the bat. The one that comes from gorilla, it ain't a gorilla like you see the gorilla today. It's a different type of gorilla. They say in Africa, 27 different type of people, human beings. A Nigerian, Ethiopian ain't the same people. Of course, we're all Africa in the general sense. We're all human beings in a general sense. But there are differences. The difference between a chimpanzee who has 98% of the same DNA that you got, gorilla got 97% of the same DNA you got, a mouse got 80% of the same DNA you got. It means that we all made out of the same stuff, atoms, electrons, protons, neutrons, the stuff that you make stuff out of. I mean, we got all the same stuff and got a lot of the same codes to actualize in the physical sense. But the consciousness is what is most important. The house that you're a part of is most important. Not that we look the same as far as physiologically. Not that we look the same. Yes, we're human beings. There's different type of human beings. There's different family groups and all that kind of stuff. You know, we're all one race. In the physical DNA. But DNA is so complicated that when you're talking about even things like therianthropes, or you're talking about Crimeans and things like that, you can have a father and mother have sex together, have a baby, and the baby not be genetically connected to the father or the mother. So there are different types of people on the earth that came at different times from different places and through different means. Some stepped out of the dimensional wormholes, got trapped. Some came in here in nut and bolt, metal, or whatever you want to call it, some type of element crafts, and crashed. Some were teleported from other solar systems here. So all this stuff that people are going to tell you, oh, well, Baba Kilindi, that's fantasy. You don't know what you're talking about. I got the challenge one Saturday night. And I want to put it super hard on you, 30 grams. And I can show you.
Just 30?
Just 30. You're tough, you're disciplined, you're a yoga practitioner, you're a kung fu master, you're a Taoist priest, you're a Buddhist, you're a Christian, whatever you are, whatever floats your boat. Do 30 grams one Saturday night. You do it at 10 o'clock. By 8 o'clock in the morning, you'll be fine. You'll be ready to drive. You'll be able to cook the kids breakfast. You'll be able to go to work Monday morning. All of that, just one Saturday night. Because 30 grams is going to connect. It ain't going to be no, well, I didn't quite feel nothing, or I saw some whirly gigs with some, some geometric symbols and things like that. No, you're gonna be in it. And ask anybody that's taking an ounce or 30 grams or something like that. If you take the sufficient dose, you're gonna be in. You're gonna have access to the multiverse and the infraparticle realms, and it ain't nothing I can tell you. You're gonna come out a Christian. Meaning you'll be a believer after that. So after 47 years or what 47, 48 years of ingesting these compounds, mushrooms in particular. In that time period, I've owned 7 houses, made fortunes, lost them, raised families. And I say family because I got 3 sets of children, some in their 40s, some in their 30s, and some in their 20s.
Wow.
I've been around the world. I've done and handled the things that I had to handle. I've encountered people all over the world. I've had strife, challenges, all of those different things. And I'm still here. I mean, so it didn't make me crazy. No crazier than I was the first day I took it. Because psychedelics won't make you crazy. If you're crazy, then you're going to be crazy. But if you ain't, it ain't going to make you crazy. So I say to everybody listening, don't take my word for it. Don't take my word for it. Do your own research. Do your own experimentation. Get in for yourself, because that's the only way you can do it. You can't sit around and listen to somebody else. Yes, I know the history. I know I've read, extensively. I used to go to New York in search of books. I used to go to London in search of books, exotic, hard-to-find books. It ain't like now you can go online, a PDF, and get books that, I'd have to ride the bus to New York for 12 hours, get off, ride the A train between Far Rockaway and the Bronx all night, get up in the morning, wash up in the library, and then go searching for books in New York, bookstores and things like that. So how does the mushroom relate to the younger Dryas? The mushroom gives you access to the information of what was going on prior to the younger Dryas, that cataclysm. It'll show you what was happening. You can ride back in time and see the cataclysm happening in real time. Is it a one-shot deal? Can you do it all the first time? If you're trying for specifics in time travel or specific schools of knowledge, of places, of libraries, of different planets in the world that exist for the understanding of what we're in as far as the mystery is concerned, because it is a mystery. Life is a mystery. Who we are and what we are is a mystery because we don't know what we are. We don't know who we are. We know that we're here. And when you can open that up and see more, become more, feel more, communicate with more, it just gives you a wider view of reality. So I could go into the planets of war where the interdimensional weapons are forged and found, where the sound frequencies are created, where the great libraries, where the great teachers of the universe sit and dispense knowledge and information to those who come to the classes. No different than college, a collage of different fields and spheres of knowledge, mathematical knowledge and the knowledge of places in different areas of sojourn that you can visit, all these different types of things. But when we're dealing with the earth and we're dealing with the three-dimensional 5 sense realities of the earth, and we don't think that there's anything else, we're just stuck. Stuck in an illusion. So what do y'all think? Everybody's sitting around quiet. What's going on?
Oh, we got two people with their hand raised, and but I'm gonna let Firewater go ahead, man. Colin, you came in late to work. What you thinking about right now, from what you done heard so far?
I'm still thinking back. First of all, this was beyond fascinating. But I'm still thinking back to a comment that you made when we were talking about the cataclysm and how there were civilizations that could pull themselves into another dimension to avoid the cataclysm and then come back. I've also heard you say before about there being villages in Africa where it doesn't look like there's much there because the people don't actually live there, that they live in a village at the fractal level. So can you clarify for people, because there's a difference between, like you said, taking a dose in the dark in your safety of your own bed and then actually shifting a whole community into another dimension. Can you clarify that?
Well, psilocybin, which is the constituent in the mushroom, psilocybin is 4-phosphoryloxy and N-dimethyltryptamine. What it does is when you eat it, it becomes psilocin, which is 4-hydroxy and N-dimethyltryptamine, through dephosphorylation. In other words, the phosphorus molecule is knocked off in your stomach, and it becomes it's a form of DMT. Now, psilocybin, before Albert Hoffman getting a specimen from Gordon Wasson and naming it psilocybin, which means basically bald head, bald head mushroom, bald head. They called it telepathy, which is that it, in a group setting of similar dose and close proximity in a familiar area, it will set up a frequency of telepathy so that the trip is a group trip. It also has higher levels to that of people who are envisioning the same goal, and distance, of course, doesn't matter with that, but it puts the people in a shared state of access so that they can then exist or sojourn in a higher dimensional construct while physically they're still in the village. Their consciousness is existing in a higher dimensional area. So while you go there and you see them and they got a hut, that hut is just an illusion. They living in celestial palaces and all that kind of stuff. But you think it's a hut. It's no different than in The Shadow with Eric Baldwin, the Tulku's palace. They kidnapped him, brought him to the palace of the Tulku, who was the head, monk there. And he said, "What you talking about?" They said, "Well, where's this guy?" He said, "He's up in the palace." And he looked over there and said, "That little hut, that ain't no palace." They said, "The cloud of nine sees nothing." And then the mist folded back, and he was in this big cobra palace. Then he went in, and the head monk was there, and he said, "You know who you messing with?" He said, "I'm the terror of this whole area." He said, "You got some power, but you're abusing it. But I'm gonna teach you how to use it." So that's the kind of understanding that there is. It's no different than when another scenario when the cataclysm is hitting. They saw the signs. Okay, well, we're getting ready to get hit by a doggone comet here. They went up in the atmosphere in their flying canoes, in their flying chariots, went up, let the thing happen, let the water recede, then they land back in a place that is, someplace that's manageable, where you can stay. They'll land back there and re-jumpstart society. And then it'll take 5,000 years to get back where, just like now, if there was getting ready to be an impact, and we knew that impact was coming because we had technological capability to, if they put more money into being able to monitor the, toward media stream, they could pretty much see when a comet was coming and be able to move that comet to where they can make it miss the Earth. They can attach some rockets to the side of it because you only have to push it less than a fraction of an inch because the thing is going, 500,000 miles. It's like an arrow. If you or a bullet or something. If you sight down, 500 yards, and you shooting, and you off just a fraction to the right or the left, up or down, and you aiming at a clay pigeon down there, and you off a fraction of a second. By the time they get down to the doggone clay pigeon, you're gonna be off, 5 feet. You're gonna miss the thing by 3 feet. It's the same thing with a meteor. You attach a little rocket in space that nudges it over 3 or 4 inches, and that's enough for it to miss the whole Earth over 500,000 miles. In concept, that ain't the true mathematics of it, but you get the concept of what I'm talking about. Or if this thing is going to hit, and you know it's going to hit, and nothing you can do about it, you know, they go down in them tunnels in Colorado where they got all the heirloom seeds and all the books and records and computer stuff and food for 10 years down there, and close them steel doors. If there ain't going to be a direct impact, if the water come over, they got breathing apparatuses and all that kind of stuff laying down in the mountains where they, stored everything away. You got people who go down in their mountains, close them doors, and when the waves come over, it ain't going to affect them. They'll still be alive. They'll be able to, in, 6 months or a year, come back, and there may be water there, but they'll pull the doggone boats and stuff out and ride to where some land that they can survive on and start planting the heirloom seeds and jumpstart stuff going again. Or you have people that could go up in, Elon Musk and them could get in that doggone rocket that land back on his footprint, but, if there's some water there, it's probably could get tipped over. But the thing is that you got people who go up in the space station and on the space station up there, and you put 10 men and 10 women up there, and it kill everybody on Earth. The waves come over, drown everybody. They can come back down on a spot that ain't got no water, that's still hospitable enough to live and survive, and start humanity back from them 10 men and 10 women. So that can be done now. So saying it was done then, that, they got in the spaceships, went up, and came back down. It wasn't no doggone tool and die shops and ways to remake the craft that they're dealing with, but over a period of time, you'll get it jump started again, and here we are today. So
wow.
These type of things, as far as the living in other dimensions and things like that, yes, those things are not only possible, but they have been done in the past.
Wow.
We got about 4 minutes before we go into the after party. Please do not hang up the phone. If you hang up the phone, you will not be able to call back in after 4 minutes. We have 2 callers on the line so far. If anybody has a question and you're already on the line, please press 1. If you're listening on the computer and you want to listen to the answers of the 2 people we already have online and a question that I have, please call in right now, 917-889-3803. 917-889-3803. All right? Press 1 if you have a question. Mine can wait because as soon as I said that, hands just started popping. So first off, from the caller from the 330-475, microphone is wide open. Can I get the name of the caller from, please?
Peace. This is Eric, tuning in from Columbus,
Peace,
Ohio.
Eric.
Peace.
Good.
I-O, yes indeed. Here we are. Man, there was a lot that was said that I'm going to be chewing on for a while, and it's going to nourish my spirit for certainly. But there was, Coach knows me. He knows I'm a bit of an amateur linguist. So I never, for long, I've been paying attention to the words that we use in the English language and how they relate to our view of reality. And there was a bit in there where you were talking about spacecrafts, and you related it. So what does the word craft mean? The word craft means to make or to mold something, right? So spacecraft, why do we use this word craft in this word space? And I realized as I was hearing you talk, it's because you can use a spacecraft to make or mold your space in a certain way. Even if you're moving your space to a different space, that's you making and molding your space. And then I had to think, okay, well, what do we call someone who does magic? We say that they practice witchcraft. And I had to think,
well, why do we use this same word craft? And I realized that if it is your path to practice witchcraft, to practice magic, if you're practicing any sort of craft, and that includes martial arts, that includes business, any sort of discipline, what you're really doing is making and molding yourself in the way that you so choose. And so I want to thank you for that little tidbit right there. And I just really wanted to add that into the conversation, and I'm done.
Well, thank you. Thank you for your addition. It's wholly accepted. Because it is about dealing with the craft, the craft of the self, building that. So yeah, thanks a lot for your contribution.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it is
right.
just that.
Oops.
It's movement. It's mold. It's what I've really come to realize is that the analogy of a spiritual path is not really an analogy. It is a path. This is why you have to be crafted, why you have to practice a craft. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, next caller from 202-274. Your microphone is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please? Caller from the 202-274. Your microphone is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please? Hello? Going once? Going twice? All right, we're going to move on to the next caller. Caller from the 330-481. 330-481. Your mic is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please?
Hello, am I clear?
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
Yeah, I had a question. I'm from the Akron, Ohio. I just had a quick little question. And he kind of he touched on like communication through the pineal gland. And I kind of wanted to hear a little more about that. Was it more of a for the pineal gland? Was it more of a the question I'm looking for is what type of spiritual enlightenment inquires you to have your pineal gland open? Because I do look at the chakras and I go through the spinal cord and all that. So I was looking just for a little bit more enlightenment on that topic.
You're saying that you wanted to know about enlightenment through the pineal gland, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's the neurohormone secreted by the pineal gland which gives the access to knowledge and information of consciousness through the pineal gland secreting melanin and pinealine and harmaline and these, the exotic beta-carbolines and the melanin itself, because 2 steps from melanin is DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is the most powerful entheogen or psychedelic that we have that's endogenous and exogenous. The endogenous secretions of DMT are actualized by the pinealine, which is a endogenous monoamine oxidase inhibitor. It is a way of, even though it's not going through the gut, it is a actualizer of the DMT. The DMT would be inactivated if it went through the stomach, but come directly from the pineal gland. The pinealine helps it actualize at the very minute levels of which it is secreted. So pinealine is a key element in the utilization of the spiritual technology endogenously created and deposited and utilized through not only darkness, but the ability to have a darkness that is dark enough to secrete enough melanin that you can convert it to the DMT. So when people say that the pineal gland doesn't secrete DMT, DMT can be synthesized through out of melanin, but it also can be synthesized directly in the pineal gland, but it's actualized through utilizing pinealine. So it is the psychedelic chemicals that can be taken from an outside source or generated from an inside source if you have the proper cascade from the tryptophan and through serotonin into melatonin and into pinealine and then into DMT communing with the pinealine. You have a spiritual chemistry, a psychedelic chemistry that will give you access to the magic or give you access to the craft, which we talked about earlier.
For sure. And then my last question is, this is the last thing. I'm sorry, go ahead. Continue,
go ahead.
please.
No, I was just saying that the pinealine is 6-methyloxy tetrahydro beta carboline. That's what that one is in relationship to the dimethyltryptamine utilization.
I'm going to have to get deeper into that too as well. My last question was only through the same as the first question, which was with us being human beings and us having like I guess however you say the diet would go, does the diet play a role? I mean, I know it plays a role, but like in what type of dynamic is your diet trying to kind of like blocking your gland?
Well, you want to have the diet, the best possible diet you can have. We're in the midst of an assault as far as our eating is concerned with the chemicals that are put in to the diet to not only dumb down but to depress the utilization of these neurohormones. Things like vaccinations and carcinogenic chemicals in the foods and GMO foods. Now, GMO doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad for you. GMO is bad for you because they don't know what they're doing, or when they know what they're doing, it's in a depressive state. The vaccinations could be the, things like mercury in them, foreign DNA, stuff like that, on purpose giving young boys DNA from the aborted fetus lung tissue of females, which deposit X chromosomes from the aborted female fetuses' lung tissue into males, and taking aborted male fetus lung tissue and depositing those Y chromosome females at a very young age, which cross-references as far as gender of taking the female DNA, putting in the males, and the male DNA putting in the females. And that's on purpose. So you can look that up or extrapolate from it what those things would do and look at our society today. This is one of the exogenous sources of manipulation of gender. Now, there is also a in vitro manipulation of gender. It is why, one of the reasons why, that once a woman gets pregnant, they would not and no longer, after a particular period, have sex anymore, because it can manipulate the hormones at a certain time, because all human embryos and fetuses start out as female, and certain hormones come in which then the male comes off of that or is put on top of the female, and then they actualize the male, the male attributes. Penis is the extended clitoris. The male brain junctions itself on top of the female brain, and you come out. That's like at the 49th day, 47th, 49th day. That's when eyelids fully form, REM sleep starts, the webbing between the fingers sloughs off, the male penis starts to is extended, fingernails develop and things like that, and the male is bridged out of the female into the male. Now, does that mean that we all start out as women? No, woman is a construct placed later on the human female. Female is the natural gender. Woman is a construct of human being, just like male is the basic pattern of the male basic pattern. And then you have man on top of that, because manhood and womanhood is changeable. Now, at this juncture, male and female is changeable because of hormones, things that they put in the chicken that make the chickens big, the female hormones they put in there. The cows, chickens that grow, from an egg to a chicken in 2 weeks, and all of those different types of things. Manipulating hormones, in the human male and female. Yeah, so those type of things that are part of the dietary regime, because it's what you take in. And then it is what you take in your diet mentally, what you're looking at, what you're observing. If you're looking at Jerry Springer and, the Mickey Mouse Club and, what Beyonce and whatever his name is doing and the rest of the, you're looking at a bunch of nonsense, that's diet too. You're listening to a bunch of nonsense, that's diet too. All of those things are food. All those things are food. So you can eat the best in the world and look at stupid stuff and, you got a bad diet. You can listen to stupid stuff. That's a bad diet. Taking the wrong concepts that don't serve you. That's a bad diet. So eating well is good. I'm vegetarian, and I've been I've been vegan, I've been fruitarian, I've been sproutitarian, I've been lacto-ovo, I've been all of them, because I've been vegetarian, 48 years, And I'm not saying that you have to be vegan. I'm not saying you have to be vegetarian, but get the best thing that you can. Try to get away from the chemicalization, of the food. Try to get, Dr. Saber would say real food, but Dr. Saber would say everything. Dr. Saber said, ain't nothing real. What's some gooseberries, elderberries, and something else. Everything else is a hybrid. But then the hybridization been going on for thousands of years, How you think you got them doggone yellow green peppers and red green peppers and purple green peppers and purple potatoes and, watermelons without no seeds. That's just cuttings and things like that. But you want to try to get seedless watermelons. Eat the seeds, eat the black seeds also, and the rind and all that kind of stuff. That's Viagra too. Good for the guys,
Hey.
And, when, moderation in all things, Oh, yes, soy is not estrogen. It has estrogen-like compounds, which are 1,000 times less powerful than estrogen, which you get from your plastic water bottles and stuff that's in the food and things like that. So tofu or soy, which is not genetically modified for stupidity, is a good thing for men in moderation. because it will displace the estrogen that you're getting from when you have, some Church's chicken or Kentucky Fried or Bob and Sally's chicken and biscuits or Mama Jones chicken and waffles and all that kind of stuff. You're getting estrogen when you're doing that. So the thing is to moderation, try to know what you're doing, try to plan your diet. Supplementation is good, if you can get good supplements or if you're making your own, so yeah, diet is important and all that, but you can make it without being a actual vegan or vegetarian, but you would want to try to do those things because of just the way that the animal slaughtering industry works, because that's not a good thing. Yeah.
That's all I had to ask. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. Like I said, from Akron, Ohio.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, big brother. Appreciate you for calling in. Next caller is calling in from 951-261. Your microphone is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please? Hello, caller from the 951. Hello. Going once.
Hey, can you hear me, Coach?
I can.
Hello? All right.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'll move you for a second. They don't lose my spot. All right. Once again, thanks and praises to the elder for his teaching and knowledge that he's presenting. You ain't getting this nowhere else except on your show, Coach, and appreciate that for you presenting that to your listeners. My question for the gentleman is, he spoke earlier about the 26 different forms of humanoids that are on this planet.
27.
27, okay, 27. Yeah. Has that number fluctuated? Do the different forms of humanoids who are here have different relations? How do we find out about that, and how do we relate to those? I guess that they are our ancestors. However, we would have no idea of our lineage unless we do what exactly?
So go to 23andMe or whatever. No, I'm just kidding. They just collect the DNA so that they know who you are. Because they know who you are. You don't know who you are. So people that go in and give a swab or whatever, they trying to find out if they from Ghana or from Gambia or from London or wherever they're from. They just collecting DNA to find out different house lineages, the Falcon house or the Lion house or the Bat house or whatever, because it's hooked to different totems and things like that. You can find these things out by ingesting high dose psychedelics and entheogens to find out what house you're a part of, And the number does fluctuate according to when certain peoples leave the earth, leave this dimension. It's no different than what was it? Well, people, you would come to places and islands would be deserted, or different towns that have left. You come and the town is gone. There's nobody there anymore. Or it's like some of the indigenous people here, in the pueblos and things like that, the peyote Indians and things like that, or a certain group has left this dimension. We fed up. We head out. They've all left out, and then there are peoples who have died out on purpose and things like that who have left. So the number can fluctuate, but last I heard, and this comes from the Nsangoma or the High Sanusis in Southern Africa who are hooked to Mars, who talk about the cataclysm and things that happened on Mars and how they came here. Sent the females here, and for 80,000 years they fought on Mars while the females were here practicing parthenogenesis. And then you'll have people who will say there's no such thing as parthenogenesis, but I beg to differ. There are documented cases of parthenogenesis in the Lancet. That's the British Journal of Medicine, and also the highest level of parthenogenesis goes on in Ghana, just as the greatest number of twins born is in Nigeria. So you have these different groups, primal sovereign groups, who don't know they're primal or sovereign in the general sense. Only the different secret societies or societies of the holders of the mystery, or the different priests and priestesshoods in different places would have that information that you can get. It's like in Latte in Ghana, you have the black medicine, which is the medicine that they brought from the Sirius star system when they came to Earth. The black medicine that you see that they put in the cuts, which is the scars. That black medicine they put in the cut on the cheeks and on the hands and knees, back of the knees, top of the feet, in top of the head, between the eyes at the third eye place, and all that kind of stuff. They don't do a lot of that no more. They used to, but it's they're becoming Christians, so they've stopped doing that. But the black medicine is still there. It's the same black medicine that was depicted in, remember the time of Michael Jackson, when Iman and Eddie Murphy were the Pharaoh and the Pharaohine, the king and queen, the Set and the Suit Bitty, and the other, when Michael Jackson, when all the magicians came out, and one guy was juggling, and they off with your head and all that kind of stuff, and Michael Jackson came out through the black powder on the ground and descended down into it, popped back up, started doing his Michael Jackson dance and stuff like that. That's the black medicine depicted in that. It's the medicine used in the cuts to connect the physical body into the other levels of the other bodies that are cross-dimensionally. In other words, in the multiverse, you have planets that are exactly the same as this, except, the day when you go out to work, here you got on a red shirt, but there you got on a green shirt. Stuff like that.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
If I may ask another question, if I'm not mistaken, last episode you talked about the aspect of cloning. Am I correct on that? You spoke on that?
Yeah.
With that being said, and tailoring on the fact that we just talked about MJ, the likelihood of him having a clone out here would be relatively high, wouldn't it? Because of such an influential individual he was just during this time period. He must have if we're talking about Rockefeller, we can talk about him and some other incarnation that we don't understand. Am I thinking correctly, or am I in left field?
Well, I mean, I would think that they'd have some of Michael Jackson's genetic material for study. I don't know if they actually, who would make another Michael Jackson, because as far as entertainment value, they have all of his particular shows, his personality down in the supercomputers and the AI, which they'll be using. They started these little concerts, with Tupac and Michael Jackson. I think they already had a Michael Jackson part of a concert where he was there in,
3D,
as a character, and just like doing movies now. When they did the last Star Wars movie, they had Peter Cushing in there as a character, and Peter Cushing been there 20 years. The same thing there. They're gonna have concerts with James Brown and Michael Jackson and Prince and all of them. They'll have them in the virtual reality where you can sit in your room. You got the virtual reality contacts on, and then ultimately it'll be beamed directly into your retina. The concert where you'll be sitting at the stadium out in California or something like that. The temperature will be controlled by the nanobots in your bloodstream, where the wind's blowing and you hearing people and you smelling the popcorn and all that kind of stuff. And Michael Jackson and James Brown and Prince are having a concert, and you out in the, you in the stands and stuff like that, but you in your doggone living room. So they'll be having all of that kind of stuff, and you'll be streaming so many credits from your credit account in electronic currency into the account of the central artificial intelligence currency account, because you're dealing with that type of entertainment. You'll be able to go and visit the Louvre, the museums. You'll be able to go to the, climb the Rocky Mountains and all that kind of stuff, and just in the virtual reality and augmented reality.
If I may,
yes, they have the genetic material of all of those different stars and people like that, who they deem significant, because they want to have the ability to be able to do that if they want to at some particular time for whatever reason,
Okay. And Coach, I don't know if may I ask one more quick question, if that's possible?
Hey, make it quick now. I got 2 more calls on the line.
Okay.
3.
The movie, I don't know if you guys seen the movie Cloud Atlas, and you kind of referred to the aspect of certain people have been rocking with you. They've been rocking with you for certain years. So would you say the individuals who are listening to the show, you've known us in a different capacity, and we're just rocking with you in a different format, and we're trying to get back or reconnect our relationships with you? Because not everybody's going to be on this call.
The first time I heard, I don't know if he was asking me or you, Big Baba, but the first time I heard Baba Kilindi talk, I just want to put my little, the first time I heard him talk, I knew we was from the same house. And for me, I recognized the coincidences, because there's no coincidences. Like, he already passed 6, 7, 8 things that I have never said to him that already is speaking all the way through my heart. You know what I'm saying? So, like, the stuff I don't have to, I could be thinking about it 2 days before, he'll come up and say it. So when that sounds like I'm joking, I'm saying, oh, he must be psychic. That is the joke, because the houses are getting drawn back together for those who are pushing the envelope. That's my experience and my particular opinion. But I yield to the elder, to whatever his words are.
Oh, well, I mean, that's no problem with what you said. It's you roll with folks and family and stuff like that. Folks come in and out, but they meet each other along the way for the time and distance that they need to be in contact for that particular time in which you're in. But, when you leave this regular, 3-dimensional 5-sense reality and move into a bigger space, we're all there anyway. You want to go down there now? No, I'm gonna rest up here for a little while. I'll go down there and act the fool with your fools, and I'll be right here minding my own business. I'll be down there in 15, 20 years, and I ain't staying long. I'm only gonna stay about 45, 50 years, and I get run over by a truck and come on back up here and lay down and rest again.
Well, thank you for your answer, and thank you for your wisdom, and good reconnecting you. And hopefully it gets deeper, and I have a better understanding or awareness. Thank you again for your words.
Oh yeah, eat your mushrooms.
All right. All right. All right. Have a good evening. I'm just messing with you.
All right. Caller from the 317-986. Caller from the 317-986. Your mic is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please?
I'm TJ. I'm from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'd like to thank Coach Khayr. That's how I ended up getting here. I got a lot of knowledge in just a few days of watching you on Facebook, man. Appreciate you. And my question, for either of you, is about the Dogon tribe. I wanted to know if their spiritual system had anything to do with their ability to see this star system, the Sirius B star system.
You're saying their spiritual system, did it have anything to do with being able to see that?
Yeah, was there a practice or then something else you said about the hallucinogens? Was it a combination of the two?
Well, I'll say this: I've never been to Dogon country. I was going up into Mali, but for some reason they was acting the fool up there. We didn't go, but their technology and the way that they have set up their villages and things like that just happen to use acacia synagogue there. The masts of the Sigi are made of the DMT wood. The granaries of which the potolo, which is the seed star from which everything comes from, is DMT. The ladders that they make, that they climb up on, to climb up in them houses up in the rocks, made from DMT. DMT and African rue are every place in that area. That's what the Hogun of the Dogon uses to be able to go into the dark cave and look out through the top of the doggone mountain into space and tell you what's going on Venus and tell you what's going on in the Sirius star system, to tell you the orbits, to see the signs of when you set the times for the Sigi and all those different type of things. So, yes, it's an entheogenic or psychedelic culture, which African tribes are. They utilize the hallucinogens at the highest levels of their particular spiritual systems. It's not for the rank and file folks, just like the Catholic Church. You had the Pope, you had the Cardinals, you had the bishops. Now, the high bishops and the Cardinals utilized the entheogens, and the Pope used the entheogens. But the regular priests and the people and the practitioners in the doggone, the churches and cathedrals and stuff, they don't use that or know anything about it. I done been to the Vatican. I know they using hallucinogens up in there, and all them, Michelangelo and all them folks was using them too, because you can't make that stuff without entheogens. They got tapestries on the wall, and the doggone tapestries on the wall. You walking down the wall, walking down the corridor, and the tapestries on the walls following you. They're following you down the hall, and they just, pictures on the wall, stuff 3-dimensional, jutting out outside their wall and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, yes, the Dogon is psychedelic, entheogenic culture. But are they going to tell you that? Are they going to verify what I'm saying? Nope. But you got all the DMT and all the monoamine oxidase inhibitor to go with the DMT, all set up in your village all over the place and everything made out of it. It ain't no coincidence. And that's like Coach said, it ain't no coincidences.
Yeah.
See, we have a problem with the hallucinogens and psychedelics, because it's just set up from Richard Nixon and, the war on drugs and Ronald Reagan And, Nancy Reagan, just say no. This is your brain.
Yeah.
This is your brain on drugs. But the entheogenic psychedelic compounds are not. They're not drugs. And psilocybin it's magic. It's pure magic.
Yeah.
And those other groups surrounding there, the Bozo, the Bambara, the others, the other groups there, they also utilize the same thing. Sheikh Amadou Bamba, he tried to kill him 400 times. Kwame Nkrumah deflected a bomb with a white handkerchief gave to him by Nana Oparabia, the Okomfo at the time, Nana Oparabia, and that white handkerchief. That white handkerchief is deep. That's why you think them preachers be holding them white handkerchiefs. They don't know why they're holding them. But in Africa, the white handkerchiefs, those are weapons. Then you see in the doggone Black Panther when the folks, the cattle folks or whatever, when they pull them doggone blankets around and start using their shields and stuff like that, that's the same thing he did with the white handkerchief. That's real in Africa. The weaponized clothing, the fabric armor, because that's all nanotechnology, femtotechnology woven in those cloths and things like that. Bark cloth, raffia, all of that's technology. Those masquerades, where you see the stilt walkers and the different snake masquerades and what is it? What's the name of them? Where is the whirlwind? The whirlwind masquerades, where these things are spinning around. These were all weapon systems and things like that, ancient weapon systems. They went to battle with them.
Yeah, that's a different perspective than I normally grasp on that, but it makes sense though. I'm feeling it. So that the nano-engineered blades and things like that had their own artificial intelligence in the blades. No different than the meteorite krises, the royal krises of Indonesia with Pinjat Salat, where they have the blades made from the meteors and things like that, where the blades when danger gets near, they rattle in the sheath, and then they'll jump out the sheath into your hand like Yoda, catching his lightsaber before he get ready to fight Palpatine. Same thing. Or the blade just fly out and start fighting by itself. All that kind of stuff. But you got to go out in the bush and all that kind of stuff to see that stuff at night when they training the young boys. Because in the village I'm a part of, you had a masquerade come down. It's got all black. And it's got two razor-sharp machetes. And then when they encounter you, it don't let you come down the street unless you give it some money. It won't let you come down the street and give it some money. I don't know what it'll do if you don't give them the money, because when he come to me, I give him some money. Because they collect the money for the young boys. They collect the money for the young boys when they snatch them up. Because they still snatch them up, just like in Roots, Kunta Kinte, wrap them up in a doggone bag and take them out in the bush and teach them all the manhood stuff and the secrets and all that kind of stuff according to their particular age group, and how much of the mystery is revealed to them. The whole thing of the mystery of the relationship between men and women, all that kind of stuff. They already know about sex because ghosts is there and doggone oxes and everything else. So folks, they know about sex, but the mystery of the relationship between man and woman, who we are, where we going, what is the mystery of life coming into the earth? Because, we got this whole goddess movement going on that they figure that they up and over us, and they ain't. We don't come from women. We come through women.
don't mistake the person in the kitchen making biscuits with the stove to cook the biscuits. You put the biscuit in the stove cook it. Then when the biscuit is ready, you take the biscuit out the stove, but that stove is not the person that's putting the doggone yeast and flour and water and butter and salt and mixing it up with their hands and making biscuits and putting it in the stove. You come through women, not from women. You are a consciousness that is pre-body, pre-physical. So you take on the physical and go through a woman and come out here. But don't think that the woman created you in the womb and you are a creation of the woman. So you say you're goddess and man ain't nothing. No, we roll together. You are the vehicle of which we come through to the earth, but we don't come from you. Everybody ain't a god and everybody ain't a goddess. Everybody ain't a king. We was kings in Africa. No, you was a farmer. So much you're a king. Everybody can't be the king. If everybody a king, then the king don't mean nothing. The king don't mean nothing if everybody a king. The king is something special. Everybody can't be the king.
Right.
That's what the king is. Now, of course, we know there ain't no kings in Africa, but I'm saying how we're trying to take it and put it now because we don't have the ancient knowledge, and these things are taught about the boys. The women are taken up and taught other things. They're taught the relationship of man and woman and sex and the mystery of that whole thing. They're taught warriorship. The women are taught how to deal with, cooking and things like that. That doesn't mean that the boys aren't taught how to cook, because everybody needs to know how to cook. Everybody needs to know how to wash. Everybody know how to be able to wash their behind. All of that stuff that people don't, that people today ain't getting.
Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, but that was thing. You shed a whole lot of light on what I was asking about for us their abilities, to see these far distances and things. What you were saying about the wood and the structures over there, and these the weaponry, and the clothing and stuff. Yeah, that's heavy, man.
TJ, I got about 3 more callers I got to try to get in. We'll probably pick up on some of that. He giving me some good ideas for the show for next week. But I definitely thank you for bringing it on right there. That question was excellent. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you very much.
And we're definitely going to catch you next week. But stay on, though, because you want to hear everybody else's question, too. So I appreciate you.
All right, thanks.
All right,
thank you.
Next, we got a caller from the 917-528. Caller from the 917-528. Your microphone is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please?
What's up, y'all? It's Shiva. How you doing?
Shiva, what's happening? How you doing?
Peace.
Good. I have a couple of questions based on my experiences. For you, Brother Kilindi, I wanted to know what's your take on blind spots in perception due to the psyche versus due to DNA coding. I've experienced that some people do not have the ability to see some of the changes that occur during mushroom journeys versus others. And their perception, there's a difference between the perception being that they're unable to fathom some of the things that are actually occurring. And then there are some who I believe don't have permission to go into certain states due to their coding. What do you think about that?
You said the. Well, you got to give me those one at a time. Which one do you want me to answer first? Restate. Which one do you want me to answer?
What is your take on people's ability to see certain things when they are under the influence of the psilocybin? How does their psyche affect their ability to see some of the things that occur? And how does their DNA play a role in what they're able to see?
Well, there's definitely a genetic component inside of entheogens. Some entheogens are encoded for certain groups. That's why, I stated at, I don't know, one of the conferences in Europe, something like that, white folks going around the world trying to be, South American shaman and African Ngangas and all these different type of things, and that they're not encoded for those particular substances, that they have substances that they utilize that are part of their genetic makeup that will give them a lot more mileage in dealing with the entheogenic world. So some folks can cross over because Daddy jumped the fence somewhere back in grandpa and grandma and grandpa days or something like that. But there's definitely a genetic component in a lot of the compounds. Some people throw up fight responses to particular things that they are experiencing. In other words, they fight hard not to see the reality of what's going on. And my estimation on dealing with those type of things that they don't want to see is to take more, and to where you breach a threshold of where you can't fight it, because some folks fight it. They don't want to see it, and then they shy away from it. So, but with practice and training and being able to relax into the experience, they can to move through the blockages that may be thrown up inside of the psychedelic experience. But yes, there's a genetic component. There's a fear factor, and all those different things that are part of it. But with diligence, you can get past a lot of those things.
Okay. Thank you. I also heard you suggest that individuals should take 30 grams in order to see some of the things within the multiverse that you discussed. And am I able to continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So my thing is, how do you really feel about people who have never dosed before going straight into 30 grams versus in our circles, 5 grams is a lot in some other circles, but it's a smaller dose considering what I work with. And I've seen certain practices leading up to dosing that assist people to get further along. But I'm curious of throwing somebody in for the first time at 30 grams. What's the possibilities there?
They're going to have a long, rough night. No, I wasn't saying for people as a first time person dealing with entheogens to jump straight into 30 grams. No, I was talking about a challenge to a segment of the an arrogant segment of the population who are bent on telling people in the psychedelic world, the psychedelic realm, that they are delusional, they're just dealing with hallucinations, that, they're pseudo, that they're just taking drugs, and, what you're talking about is just plain bull. or BS.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking about, I was just making a challenge to some of those arrogant people and say, okay, well, if you really feel like that, you come on and take 30 grams. I'll sit with you, you know.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what I was talking about. No, for the first time, we have protocols for dosing up and ingestion and things like that. Start with 5 dry grams with a sitter.
Mm-hmm.
And the sitter is not a guru. The sitter is not a high priest or priestess of the lineage going back to the beginning of time. No, all they're supposed to do is be in the other room and leave the person alone. If the person who's taking it, if they want to talk, they can be a comfort to that person and make sure they don't go outside walking around.
Right.
And then the second dose is 7 dry grams with a sitter. The third dose is 9 grams with a sitter. And after the 9 grams, if you feel confident in yourself to then start traveling alone, that's what you should do, because it's the traveling alone that the real work is done. That doesn't mean that you can't go on group trips or that you can't go in partner trips with your spouse or significant other or whatever. But 5, 7, and 9 is the protocol. And then you keep dosing up at 2 grams increments or 3 gram increments, whichever way you want to do it, until you get until you get full access. That's the protocol.
You said your superhero dose is 40 grams, right?
No, I didn't say superhero dose was 40 grams.
You didn't say
that's
tonight.
the last.
You didn't say it tonight, but I'm asking you about your superhero dose.
It is a superhero dose, you know, and 50 grams is the God dose, and 75 grams is the universal master dose. I'm just putting some some jargon to it, you know. Okay. It's access dose where you're getting in, you know, because I'm not stopping at any one particular place until I physically can't eat that much. And then I'll have to find different methods of ingestion, you know, because it can get to a point to where you physically just, you know, you can't eat so much. But if you think of a quarter pounder with cheese, or a Big Mac, or if you think of a nice big pot of rice with or quinoa with, you know, some, you know, vegetables, sauteed vegetables and stuff like that, you're eating a quarter of a pound. So, you know, if you're talking about a quarter of a pound of mushrooms, you can eat a quarter pound of mushrooms. It won't do nothing to you physically. It will be challenging on other levels, but, you know, you have to look at the bulk of it. But, no, 40 grams is what my dose that I'm working with now. The last dose I had wasn't 40, though. It was like 21 grams. But by the end of the year, I'll do a 50-gram dose sometime this year. I don't know exactly when. But, you know, that's just me. Most people will never go past 3.5 or microdose.
Right.
Microdosing is fine for thinking outside of the box, for novel thought, things like that. But most people who are taking the microdoses now aren't taking the microdose for that reason. They're taking microdoses because they're scared to take a full entheogenic dose and utilizing microdosing as a cover. And I'm not talking about the people who use microdosing as a strategy for a higher level of thought. I'm talking about the people who are faking the funk, trying to get away from taking a real entheogenic dose and diving into the multiverse and encountering all the things that are out there.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you for calling. Appreciate your call.
All right. Peace.
Peace. Thank you. We got a couple more hands. Some of y'all, we having Baba Kilindi goes in for the evening, and we have a private after party where we like kind of sum up what's going on. So some of y'all are getting texts right now to invite to the private after party. But Baba probably used to do that when he was a lot younger, but he already gave us all of his time for this evening. I'm going to take one more call, but first, last week I want to thank everybody who sent any form of donation from $1 to $1,000 to $1 million. And I'm going to ask the same thing tonight because, well, several reasons, but just out of appreciation, the PayPal for Baba Kilindi is Kilindi@hotmail, KILINDI@hotmail.com. He don't ask me to do that. He probably don't know I was going to do it last week or I was going to say it again, but this is my show, and I want us to pay some respect. If you feel that you got some value from it, then please help the brother. He's getting ready to start traveling around the world. If you watching his YouTube videos, him going to Prague is not free. Him going to South Africa is not free. So put a little something and help our big brother continue on the things that that he's doing to help bring information back to us. I want to also, I know he's a couple shows ago he talked about he going to Egypt to pull off something massive that a lot of us never even thought about, much less tried. So he got birthday coming up. If y'all want to put it up on the birthday blessings or whatever, or just off the love off your heart, it's Kilindi@hotmail.com. Please drop something in the brother's PayPal. Now, I'm going to go ahead and have to just juggle. I'm going to take one more call tonight because Chris and Lighten, you get a call every week. So 917, I'm coming to you. And 330, I might not get to you. But 917-972, your microphone is wide open. Can I get your name and where you're calling from, please?
Good evening. My name is Alex from Brooklyn, New York. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi. You were saying there's no such thing as coincidences, and I was thinking about, you show people how to grow mushrooms, and the preferred matrix that it grows in is from brown rice. And brown rice and other whole grains have historically been the preferred food of human beings, sacred food of human beings. And you think there's any significance to that now we can grow the mushroom at home on what some have called the perfect food for humanity, or some kind of godlike food? What do you think about that?
Well, the mushroom downloaded the matrix for people to be able to get in and experience it by giving psilocybin fanaticus the formula to grow mushrooms in the confines of your own home without being a mycologist. So he opened that up, and the internet opened up just at the same time that he was delivering the formula to, people around the world, which started the psilocybin mushroom growing explosion. So, yes, the one of the sacred grains, which were brought here to the earth, such like millet and the fonio and corn and wheat and barley and the other sacred grains. So yes, it's part of the whole downloading of the matrix of how to formulate the entheogen of choice for many people on earth. So yes, I agree that that's all part of it, and not a coincidence. Because mushrooms, even in the psilocybin mushrooms that are wood lovers, are moving with the human beings disturbing natural habitats and creating sod grasses and also wood chips and things like that. I think in Washington and in what is that? Where Paul Stamets stays in Washington State, the largest psilocybin azarensis patch around is in the wood chips that grow around the courthouse and the police station. So they move with human beings and human habitats so that they would be available, because it's a technology, and the technology for access into extra-dimensional realms should be accessible to the beings who have the ability to be able to utilize it. So, thank you for your question.
Thank you
and
very much.
Coach, you can get that last call from the 3-1.